All right, let's dive right in. We're talking about King Lear today, which is, let's be honest, one of Shakespeare's most brutal plays. But we're not just going to rehash the plot. No, we're going to get under the hood and really unpack the anatomy of its collapse. And we'll be doing it through the eyes of some of the world's top Shakespearean scholars.
So to really get this play, you have to start with this imagined warning from Shakespeare himself. He's basically saying, hey, I did not write King Lear to comfort you. I wrote it to strip things away. This sets the stage perfectly. This is not a feel-good story. It's designed to completely tear down everything you thought you knew about power, love, and justice.
And here's something that's so easy to miss. Collapse, in this world, it doesn't just show up unannounced. It arrives dressed up as order. Think about it. The play kicks off not with chaos, but with this very formal, very structured ceremony. And that's Shakespeare's genius right there. He's showing us that the moment that looks like a new, stable order is actually the first step off the cliff into absolute ruin.
Okay, so let's start peeling back the layers. The first one is all about politics. At its heart, this whole tragedy is rooted in Lear's just fundamental misunderstanding of what power even is.
And the scholar Stephen Greenblatt, he frames the whole thing around this one critical question. Was Lear wrong to give up power, or was he wrong in how he gave it up? And the answer, of course, isn't just a simple yes or no. The real catastrophe is buried in the details of his decision, and it reveals this incredibly deep flaw in how he thinks.
And this is Greenblatt's big idea right here. He says we're not watching a king lose his power. We're watching a king who doesn't even understand what power is in the first place. The tragedy doesn't start when he hands over the map. No, it starts way earlier, with his belief that power is just a thing, a possession he can chop up and hand out, all while expecting to keep the respect and authority that comes with it. It just doesn't work that way.
Building on that exact point, you've got David Scott Caston, who points out that Lear is basically trying to have his cake and eat it too. He wants the form of being king, the title, the knights, all the pomp and circumstance, but he doesn't want the actual work of ruling. And Shakespeare's point here is devastating. Those symbols, they can't survive once you rip out their material foundation. They just become hollow. Then Richard Streer comes in and just nails the moral failure at the heart of it all. At that critical moment, Lear doesn't ask, what's going to happen to my people? No, he asks, how am I going to be treated? And that inversion, that flip from public duty to personal comfort, well, that's the poison. It's the ethical poison that seeps in and infects everything that comes after. So you have this massive political mistake, but what's fueling it? Something just as toxic, really. It's a total corruption of the social fabric, a world where truth gets replaced by performance and love. Love becomes a public spectacle.
Which leads to the big question, right? Why does Lear stage this bizarre, frankly uncomfortable love test? Well, what the scholars argue is that by demanding his daughters perform their love publicly and have it measured, he's not really asking about love. He's trying to lock down political loyalty. He's turning a deeply personal emotion into a political tool. And as you can imagine, that's going to have disastrous consequences.
And you can see the conflict laid out so clearly. On one side, you've got Goneril and Regan. They get the game. They know it's all about performance, so they lay on the flattery thick, and they get rewarded. But on the other side, you have Cordelia. And her honesty, her precision, isn't seen as integrity. In this twisted court, it's seen as a refusal to play along, a failure to perform.
Jonathan Dollimore really puts it perfectly. He says Cordelia fails because she refuses to turn love into currency. I mean, think about that. Lear has created a system where affection is purely transactional. You say the right words, you get a piece of the kingdom. Simple as that. Cordelia's refusal to play that game, to take part in this, economy of love, well, that's what seals her fate.
And the philosopher Stanley Cavell takes it even a step further. He points out that in a world that's governed by performance, sincerity starts to look like refusal. That is such a powerful idea. In Lear's court, Cordelia's genuine quiet love just doesn't compute. It doesn't register as love at all. Because when you're in a world that's all theater, the most authentic thing you can do is seen as an act of defiance.
Okay, so you've got these political mistakes and this social corruption. It all has to lead somewhere, right? And it leads directly to the psychological price Lear has to pay, his descent into madness. But here's the twist. The scholars argue this isn't just a breakdown. No, it's something much more complicated. It's a painful, absolutely shattering breakthrough.
And the way they define madness in this play is just incredible. It's not about losing your grip on the truth. It's about losing your protection from the truth.
All the walls, all the insulation that power and status give you, it all collapses. And you're left completely exposed to the raw, unfiltered, brutal truth of the world.
Carol Thomas Neely really points out the central paradox of the whole play. She says Lear actually speaks more truth once his reason fractures than he ever did as king. I mean, Shakespeare completely flips our expectations on their head. Coherence, reason, that becomes blindness. And incoherence, madness, that becomes vision. And what does this new vision give him? For the very first time, as the great critic Harold Bloom points out, Lear discovers empathy. It's only when he's stripped of absolutely everything, his crown, his home, even his sanity, that he can finally, truly see and feel the suffering of the poorest, most abandoned people in the kingdom he used to rule.
So this brings us to, well, probably the bleakest, most challenging part of the entire play. This is where we have to confront a universe that seems completely, totally indifferent to whether you're good or bad. A universe that just doesn't care about justice.
The legendary critic Northrop Frye argued that what King Lear really does is it dismantles our hope for a moral order. It confronts us with this absolutely terrifying possibility that the world doesn't operate according to justice at all, that maybe suffering isn't connected to being guilty, and that the universe, it just doesn't care about being fair.
And Raymond Williams offers such a vital way of looking at Cordelia's tragic end. He says, look, Shakespeare isn't punishing Cordelia for being stubborn or proud. Her death is an indictment of the world, a world so corrupt it has no place for her kind of honesty. It's not a moral failure on her part, it's a social failure. The system failed her, she didn't fail it.
So, where did this all start? Where is the source of this massive political and moral collapse? Well, all the scholars trace it back to the same place: the foundational crack, the first battlefield, the intimate, broken space of the family. As Janet Adelin puts it so powerfully, before King Lear is a political tragedy, it's already a family tragedy. Shakespeare is insisting that the collapse of an entire kingdom, it begins right there at the dinner table. Every betrayal, every power struggle we see play out on the national stage, it was all rehearsed in the home first.
And this leads Michael Neal to ask a really tough question about Goneril and Regan. Are they just born cruel, or were they made that way? He suggests that Lear created this competitive economy of love, and his daughters learned from a very early age that affection wasn't something you felt, it was something you had to display strategically just to survive. And really, this gets to a core theme that all the scholars touch on. The tragedy isn't just born from malice, it's born from a catastrophic misrecognition, a complete failure to see who your children truly are. Lear does it with Cordelia, Gloucester does it with Edgar. And that failure to see, that's the crack in the foundation. It's where all the poison of betrayal seeps in. So let's end with one last provocative thought, again from our imagined Shakespeare. After all the darkness, all the chaos and despair, the play seems to suggest something. If there is any hope to be found, it's not going to be in kings or political systems. No, it rests in the quiet courage of those who refuse to perform love, even when that silence costs them absolutely everything.